Karen thought she was about to give birth, so her husband Frank rushed her to the hospital. Karen had been in labor for 48 hours before giving delivery, but when the doctor saw what she had given birth to, he turned pale. Next, he was at a loss for words. Karen was told that they needed to do certain tests to make sure the baby was fine after it was transported away. The doctor returned after a few hours. This can't possibly be good. His entire face has turned bright crimson, and he can't look Karen or her husband Frank in the eyes. They've never seen him before like this. What exactly is going on? But before just smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. Karen pleaded to see her daughter. The doctor refused to budge. He didn't want to say anything to them. Frank became enraged as well. He stood up and told the doctor that nothing would prevent him from seeing his child. The doctor was taken aback. Frank made his way to the hospital's research section. The doctor was surprised, but he phoned security to ensure Frank was stopped. Frank didn't fight since he knew it would be futile. He was eventually led from the hospital. Karen, on the other hand, was compelled to remain. The doctor informed the parents that additional testing were required. Karen couldn't take it any longer. Karen was led to a different room. She inquired as to where Frank was, but he was sent home. Karen was required to remain for further questioning. They needed more information to figure out what was wrong with the infant. Karen was questioned about her pregnancy but refused to answer at first. Karen was questioned about her certainty that Frank was the father. Karen was taken aback. How could they expect her to do this? When she was pressed, Karen burst into tears. There was a lot that happened before and throughout the pregnancy. Karen was advised by the nurse that if she did not want to share, she should not. Karen, however, was reassured by the nurse that she had nothing to worry about, so all they discussed would be kept between them. Karen then began talking about her past. Before meeting Frank, she led a wild life. She was a heavy drinker and partier. Frank was able to persuade her to slow down, but it is possible that it was too late. She became pregnant unexpectedly. During her pregnancy, she suffered from severe stomach cramps that she couldn't understand, yet the doctor assured her that everything was fine. Did the doctor miss something? When the nurse reviewed previous tests performed by other doctors, she saw anything unusual. A significant amount of material was redacted. It was almost as though they were attempting to hide something. Karen had yet to comprehend what was going on. The nurse had summoned a doctor. She inquired about the test findings. The doctor who conducted the tests, on the other hand, was sacked 2 weeks ago. Was this related? Karen was reassured by the doctor that the baby was still well, but they needed to determine whether it could survive without being cared for. Blaise, the newborn, was unquestionably a one-of-a-kind case for the hospital. The doctor then informed Karen that she would have to remain the night. Karen decides she will no longer strive. Karen also had another plan for that night that she didn't tell anyone about. Karen was clearly not locked in her room all night, so she decided to get out of bed and search for her baby. Karen has an idea of where the newborns are kept in the hospital. Karen crept out of bed as the nurse finished her last round. Karen understood she needed to access the room using a key card. Could only be obtained in the security room. Karen had a hunch there might be some spare key cards. She obtained the key card by some miracle. It was time for her to see her child. Karen returns swiftly to the baby's room. She takes out her key card and swipes it. She exhaled a breath of relief. The door swung open. Now, Karen begins to cry as she sees her child. Then she screams and lets go. She doesn't care who hears her. The doctor and a few of nurses dashed inside. Karen was seen with her toddler on the floor close to the flat. They prepared for the worst. This was precisely why they didn't want Karen to get too close to her child until they had answers. The youngster was still alive, but they now needed to explain something to Karen for which they had no solutions. And what Karen's frustration grows as she demands an immediate explanation for why her baby looks different. She becomes increasingly agitated and overwhelmed by the lack of answers from the doctor. To make matters worse, the doctor informs Karen that the test results may not be available until tomorrow. This news further plunges Karen into a state of upset and anxiety. The thought of waiting another day to understand what is happening with her baby feels unbearable to her. Each passing moment feels like an eternity, leaving Karen yearning for some semblance of clarity and reassurance about her child's condition. Despite the doctor's advice to go to bed and rest, Karen remains obstinate and refuses to listen. Reluctantly, the doctor takes the necessary steps to ensure Karen's safety and places her in bed. Although it may feel like imprisonment to Karen, this decision is made with her best interests in mind, aiming to provide the rest and care she needs to recover and calm her and regain her strength. Karen tosses and turns throughout the night, unable to sleep as her mind is consumed by what she witnessed earlier. It's with each passing hour, Karen's longing for the next day intensifies. On the following day, the doctor enters the room with a deep sense of concern etched across his face. With a firm tone, the doctor directs Karen to summon her husband, Frank. As Frank walks into the room, a mix of anger and confusion overtakes him, leading to a confrontational tone directed at Karen. "What have you done?" His accusation hangs heavily in the air, leaving Karen taken aback by the sudden outburst. The doctor, observing the tension, requests that Frank remain quiet and composed, urging him to sit calmly. As Frank contemplates leaving the room, doubts cloud his mind, fueling his belief that he may not be the biological father of the baby. Karen, determined to clear her name, affirms her innocence, assuring Frank that she has done nothing wrong. She understands the weight of his suspicions and proposes as a solution a test to determine the baby's paternity. Upon doctor's request, Frank found himself taken aback by the unexpected demand to provide a DNA sample. The doctor, recognizing the potential of DNA analysis, believed that by obtaining Frank's DNA, he could unravel not only the mystery of the baby's paternity, but also gain insights into the underlying health issues the child might be facing. As the wait for the DNA results began, an air of intrigue enveloped the room. As the doctor relayed the news of a few hours' wait for the test results, a sense of tension hung in the air. As the moment of truth approached, Karen's mind raced with thoughts of what lay ahead. The doctor's gaze fixed bated breath. He braced himself to hear the results of the test, his mind racing with a mix of anticipation and concern. As the doctor carefully examined the test findings, Frank's expectations clashed with the reality that was about to unfold. In a surprising twist, Frank noticed a hint of shock on the doctor's face. According to the test results, Frank was indeed the biological father, but no DNA from Karen had been detected. The news left her utterly bewildered, searching for answers amidst the confusion. How could this be possible? Karen and Frank found themselves facing an unsettling reality. Filled with eagerness, Karen expressed her desire to see her child immediately. Understanding the significance of this moment, the doctor acquiesced and agreed to accompany both Frank and Karen to the infant room. When Frank laid eyes on his child for the first time, a deep sense of perplexity washed over him. Unlike Karen's immediate bond and outlandish reaction, Frank's emotions were more complex and restrained. He couldn't quite put into words the multitude of thoughts running through his mind as he took in the sight of his newborn. The connection he felt was undeniable, but he still grappled with questions that lingered in the depths of his being. Reassuringly, the doctor emphasized their commitment to finding solutions for Frank and Karen, as they assured the couple that a team of dedicated doctors was working tirelessly in the lab, around the clock, to unravel the mystery surrounding their child and the peculiar DNA results. Within the lab's walls, a collective effort was underway as multiple doctors collaborated to decipher what could be amiss with the child's DNA. The intensity of their work was evident as they delved into research, conducted tests, and analyzed data persistently. Each doctor brought their expertise to the table, leaving no stone unturned in their pursuit of answers. Karen, overcome by a surge of emotions, once again exhibited an outlandish reaction. She abruptly says that their baby has been exchanged and goes in search of her child. Frank feared Karen had gone insane. The doctor tries to stop Karen, but eventually lets her do her thing in order for her to come to a conclusion. Karen is still in a state of denial. She refuses to keep the baby since she claims it is not hers. For a few moments, Frank and the doctor let her wrath out. Karen ultimately sits on the floor and gives up. Frank then attempts to persuade Karen to care for and keep the child. The doctor informed them that the infant was healthy and did not appear to be suffering from anything life-threatening. The only problem is that everything took longer than expected, and the findings will be available tomorrow. Frank and Karen make the decision to return home without the baby. That night, they both pondered long and hard about what they would do. The phone rang. They pick up and the tension in the room is palpable. Karen switches the doctor's phone to speaker mode. He begins talking about what they did and discloses that they have finally come up with an answer that they want to share with them in person. Karen and Frank rushed inside the car. Karen is tense throughout the entire trip to the hospital. They enter the doctor's office, and the doctor instructs them to take a seat. The nurse takes the baby in and informs them that their child is absolutely healthy. They also have an explanation for why the newborn appears to be unique. Karen is now on the verge of a nervous breakdown. It is clear that the child was infected with a rare virus after birth and will be treated within a few days. The mother will return to his wife and their lives will return to normal within weeks.